This house is for family, so outsiders should leave. My mother-in-law made sure to speak slowly and clearly so that even someone like me, with my lack of comprehension, could understand. Amy burst into laughter, unable to hold back, and lured by her laughter, my mother-in-law joined in. The moment my father passed away, my in-laws wasted no time in coming to take over our luxury apartment. Amidst their laughter, I alone hung my head low. I could feel my shoulders shaking. Perhaps feeling pity for my miserable state, Ken spoke to me gently. "Come on, don't be so down. You've done your part for your dad. You have no regrets left, right? Now, it's my turn to do my part for our parents." I held back my emotions with all my might, my shoulders heaving. But I couldn't take it anymore. Suddenly lifting my head, I burst out laughing so hard that I had to clutch my stomach. I wiped away a tear from the corner of my eye. Their arrogant assumption that they had done me a favor was revolting. Thinking of how they had been laughing behind my back while deceiving me and my father made my blood boil. I'm going to ruin their joyous plans. My name is Kathy Johnson, 53 years old. My only daughter, Emily, graduated from college this year and found a good job. With her growing up and leaving home, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. I thought I would feel at ease, but it seems I'm still not ready to let go, always worrying about Emily living alone in the city. It's been 6 months since she started her job and she hasn't come home even once. I wonder if Emily is eating properly. I let out my concern inadvertently while having dinner with my husband. Eating Emily's favorite beef and potatoes. Her face came to my mind as we ate. She's new at her job, so I get that she's busy. But I wish I could cook her a nutritious meal. Across the table was my husband, Ken. But Ken didn't even look at me. He ate, with his eyes glued to the smartphone in his left hand. Not focusing on his meal, spilling gravy all over the table and chewing loudly. "Hey, Ken?" As always, Ken didn't respond. My concerns, turned into a soliloquy, were pushed back into my heart. When was the last time Ken and I had a proper conversation? I never imagined our marriage would turn into one with so little communication. I met Ken 23 years ago. When I was nearing 30, a friend introduced me to him. He was well educated and had a good job at a major company. I was nervous, but his kind and confident smile stole my heart instantly. Our relationship began. Every date was like something out of a magazine, with stylish cafes and beautiful nighttime views. He always planned everything perfectly. I've always been work-oriented and never really had any romantic relationships. But meeting you, Kathy, makes me feel like I've been single just to find you. I know you're my destiny. Even cheesy lines like that sounded good coming from him with his handsome features. He was like a prince, always expressing his love for me. But I was no princess. I was just an average office worker. I started to feel insecure, wondering if we were really a good match. While grappling with such worries, I received an unexpected proposal from Ken. We had only been seeing each other for 2 months. Although I should have been jumping for joy, I couldn't muster a yes. Taking a leap of faith, I voiced my anxieties. He held me tight and whispered into my ear. "You don't need any extra feelings for marriage. I just want you, Kathy." And so, we got married. I felt as though I'd become the happiest woman in the world. That feeling lasted until the morning after the wedding, when we began our life as a married couple. "Hey, Kathy. Are you telling me to eat this?" Laying out breakfast, Ken's face darkened. I had no clue why he looked so displeased. On our first morning living together, I'd gone all out on the meal. I served bacon, salad, scrambled eggs, toast, and such for breakfast. All I want in the morning is coffee and toast. How do you expect me to read the newspaper if I can't eat with one hand? Ah, I get it now. You like to start your day with a leisurely, inefficient meal. Ha, figures. This wasn't the Ken who had exchanged vows with me just the day before. Staring at my speechless, shocked face, he leaned in. "I like that dumbfounded look on you." He smiled faintly, seemingly content. Then left the house without touching his breakfast. All I could do was stand still, staring at the untouched food. I had taken the day off, planning to tidy up our new home. But after this morning's blow, both my body and mind refused to cooperate. Around 9 a.m., the doorbell rang. The moment I opened the door, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, Amy, entered without even greeting me. "Ah, Kathy." I heard you tried to butter Ken up with that breakfast this morning. Too bad. Ken isn't some simpleton who'll bend to your will if you feed him. My mother-in-law declared breathlessly. Ken had his usual bread at home before heading to work. How pitiable, considering you're newlyweds. Amy sneered with glee. Apparently, Ken had visited his family home before work this morning. I felt humiliated, having our little misunderstanding laid bare to his family. Amy glanced around the room and let out an exaggerated sigh. Look, Mom. There are still moving boxes in the corner. Kathy really is messy. I was just cleaning that up. I tried to defend myself, but my mother-in-law shut me down. No excuses. It's funny how a woman like you, a mere office worker, is all talk. From the start, you and Ken were mismatched. We took you in, so show some gratitude. She heavily sat on a chair. Come on, make some tea. You should know to serve without being told. I hurriedly made tea and offered it to them. After a sip, she chuckled. Heh, it's bland. Can't believe someone who used to serve tea at an office can't even make a decent cup. She and Amy noisily sipped on their hot tea. I wonder if Ken is really okay with someone like her. Well, she's probably just right for him as a wife. For some reason, Ken seems to like Kathy. While their cryptic words niggled at me, I couldn't say a thing in front of my husband's family. Amy, for all her comments, was a single homebody obsessed with pop idols. She just recently quit her part-time job at a supermarket. She had no place judging me. But my dream of a sweet honeymoon period was shattered. My husband looked down on me, and my mother-in-law and Amy would frequently make sarcastic remarks. This wasn't what I had signed up for. Though troubled, I couldn't imagine suggesting a divorce right after marriage. Then, 6 months later, I became pregnant and gave birth to Emily. After that, the overt snide remarks from my in-laws decreased. It's not that they suddenly had a change of heart or didn't want to criticize me in front of a young child. They simply became obsessed with popular TV shows from Korea. Apparently, they're now both busy watching dramas all day and even travel for fan events. Thankfully, that meant I and my daughter were out of their sights. While I wished Emily could experience more love from her grandmother, the distance helped maintain some semblance of peace in our household. As for Ken, he seemed satisfied as long as I understood his routine and supported him devotedly. Time flew, and before I realized it, we had been married for 23 years. While it hasn't been the happiest journey, we led a life without significant upheavals. I thought our days would just pass by quietly, without any major events. However, an unbelievable statement came from Ken's mouth. Should we move in together? It had been a while since I heard Ken's voice, and for a moment, I wondered if I was hearing things. What? I could feel the color draining from my face. With his mom? But that wasn't it. Your father, he's rebuilding his house, right? I thought we could move in together while he's at it. Ken explained. Actually, a few days ago, I'd talked to Ken about my father's living situation. He seemed indifferent at the time, but it appears he was listening. You mentioned the house was getting old, right? Building a new one in his 80s? That's gotta be a joke. But I guess that's just an excuse. He probably wants to have you close by since your mother-in-law passed away years ago. Living alone must be hard for him at his age. The unexpected turn of events left me baffled. But I want to live in a condo, not a house. Ken continued. It's gonna be us living there long term, not your dad. So, in exchange for moving in together, I'd like this one little indulgence. Without mocking my stunned expression, Ken spoke gently. Besides, I'm worried about you, Kathy. You care too much about Emily. Now that she's grown up, you should start your second chapter. Changing environments can brighten your mood. Ken. Thank you. I realized that behind his stoic demeanor, he genuinely cared for me. Tears welled up in my eyes. I immediately discussed the idea of living together with my father, who was overjoyed. Once we decided, Ken acted quickly. He seemed to have already picked out a brand new high-rise condo. I was surprised. No matter how good Ken's job at a big corporation was, affording a high-rise was astonishing. I wasn't privy to our financial situation, only receiving a monthly allowance, but when I checked the condo's selling price, I felt dizzy. Emily has moved out. Why stay in a family-oriented condo? This is gonna be our forever home. We can splurge a little, Ken reasoned. Unbeknownst to me, the discussions with my father had advanced, and he had already given his consent. Though I felt some anxiety, living in the high-rise turned out to be extremely comfortable. It seemed the start of a happy second chapter in our lives. However, my relationship with Ken deteriorated. We had some conversation leading up to purchasing the condo, but he reverted to his unresponsive ways. Plus, he was seldom at home due to frequent late nights and business trips. Maybe Ken doesn't feel relaxed at home with your dad around, my father speculated, looking dejected. He had become more withdrawn and seemed less lively. Dad, what about the social dance and karaoke groups you used to attend? You haven't been since we moved, right? I quit those, he replied. Why? Well, just because. Being with you is enough for me. With his hobbies gone, I watched my father deteriorate rapidly. Though I encouraged him to go out, he'd only go for late-night walks. And just a year after moving in together, he was hospitalized. When I opened his dresser to get his pajamas, I found a bank book. Hesitant to invade his privacy, something urged me to check it. Seeing the contents, my breath caught. Dad, what is this? I immediately confronted him at the hospital. He responded with a faint smile. The last moments with you were the happiest for me. I'm thankful to Ken for that. But, actually, I was shaken by the reality my father disclosed. But he gently squeezed my hand. A few days later, he passed away peacefully. When I informed Ken, his response was unexpectedly light. Oh, sooner than I thought. Then, another blow struck. As I was searching for a picture for my father's memorial service, the front door opened. Assuming Ken had returned, I was startled by multiple footsteps approaching. Where should we place these boxes? It was a moving company. Followed by my mother-in-law. Oh, Kathy, you're here? Amy and Ken were with her. Boxes kept coming in. What's with all these boxes? I asked in surprise. You can't tell? Maybe those office jobs really don't require brains. Amy and I are moving in, my mother-in-law declared. Amy and her mother exchanged glances and smirked. Seemingly on purpose, Amy said, My condolences on your loss. Truly, our sympathies. So, sorry to be so direct, but Kathy, you should leave now. What? I furrowed my brows, and Ken, who had been silent, chuckled. Kathy just doesn't get it. Someone spell it out for her. His mother then slowly and clearly said, We're family, so outsiders should leave. Amy was covering her mouth, her face turning red. Trying not to laugh. Unable to hold it in any longer, she burst into laughter, and her mother joined in. Now that the bothersome old man is gone, this house belongs to us. Amid their laughter, I was the only one looking down. Shaking. Seeing my misery, Ken gently said, Hey, don't be so down. You've done your part for your father. Nothing left to regret. Now it's my turn to do mine. Maybe you can go to Emily's place. Though, who knows if she'll take you in. Tears welled up, but I held them back. However, I couldn't take it anymore. And burst into laughter. I wiped away a tear from the corner of my eye with my finger. Please, make yourselves at home. Ken and his family looked shocked. Has she gone crazy? Gross. Ignoring their disgusted faces, I left the house. How dare they talk about doing a favor? When I think about how they were laughing behind our backs, I boil with anger. I will ruin their plan, which was to celebrate my father's absence. For now, I left them be and finished the funeral without any issues. Of course, without his in-laws. After my father's send-off, my revenge began. I stayed in a business hotel for a while. And on the following Sunday, I headed straight to that condo. With my keys, I opened the door and let in a group of movers. Relaxed in her stretched-out pajamas, Amy screamed in surprise. Ken and his mother looked up, puzzled. The movers, professionally, started packing everything into boxes. Sorry to disturb you, I'm here to pick up my things. His mother was about to nod in agreement, but then snapped. How rude of you to come without notice! Didn't you guys move in without telling me? Amy and her mother, furious. Ken was the first to realize something was off. Hey, don't touch our stuff! Ken yelled at the movers, who were diligently doing their job. Not only were they packing my stuff, but they had also begun packing the furniture and appliances. Seeing the mover's momentary confusion and pause, I urged him to continue. Sorry, please don't mind. These are my things, so please take them to my new place. And, could you move those other items to the storage unit? Both parties nodded and proceeded to clear out everything from the house. What the heck are you doing? The real question is, what were you guys thinking? Amid the hustle and bustle of the moving company, a man in a suit appeared. He's from the real estate agency. He's here for an appraisal today. Appraisal. Ken was so bewildered he couldn't even accept the business card the man was offering. Oh, don't you get it? Maybe you're not that bright, Ken. I'm gonna sell this condo. Ken, his mother, and Amy all stared in shock. Their dumbfounded expressions made me want to burst out laughing. Why are you all so surprised? This was my dad's place. He bought it. You guys have no rights here. In contrast to my calm demeanor, his mother clung to Ken, asking, What's this all about? Didn't you just have Kathy's dad pay the down payment for the condo? It seemed that they conveniently told her that my dad had only chipped in a little bit. Instead of the silent Ken, I explained. I thought Ken was kind, suggesting we live together with my dad. But no, you were after my dad's money. Without my knowledge, Ken had persuaded my dad to buy the condo. That was the condition for living together. He had depleted all of my dad's savings to buy the condo. So, what? It's better for an old man nearing his end to buy a condo for us than to waste money building a house. It's the right use of money. Kathy was able to show her gratitude to her dad, so don't complain. Yes, I'm thankful I got to spend the end with him. There you go. The smug look on Ken's face was infuriating. Thinking of my dad's bankbook tightened my chest. First, it was emptied for the condo purchase. Then, every time his pension came in, it was immediately withdrawn. My dad stopped going out for his hobbies because he had no money. You even took his pension as your living expenses, Ken. How greedy can you be? Ken had treated my father like an ATM. Unable to meet my direct gaze, he looked away. But now, I'm glad my dad bought this place. Being his only daughter, I inherited it and can sell it off. If you had contributed even $10,000 to it and co-owned it, things would have been complicated. And, what was it? Strangers, get out? Don't make me laugh. The ones leaving are you guys. Trying to defend her defeated son, his mother chimed in. All right. We're sorry. Our son's at fault. Are you satisfied now? Sorry for using the money from your beloved father. But he's gone. Why should Ken be blamed for a man who's no longer here? Kathy, you're so persistent. Amy, seeing the situation wasn't in their favor, tried to sweet-talk me. Huh? Who said we're strangers? Maybe it's your misunderstanding? Stop the weird jokes. We're family. We came because we were worried you'd be lonely without your dad. Let's live happily together, okay? After trying to throw me out, they now claim we're family. I wasn't even mad, just astounded. What do you think, Ken? Am I a stranger to you? Want a divorce? Ken replied in a feeble voice. No, I'd never want a divorce. I love only you, Kathy. It's mean to talk about selling the house. The Ken who once looked down on me was nowhere to be found. Seeing him so timid and pitiful, I wondered why I had been so considerate of him. You saying you love me? That's a laugh. You just want to keep me around now that I've inherited the house. No, I truly love you, Kathy. Stop it. Makes me sick. You're cheating on me, and you have the nerve? Then, I slammed down several photos on the table. Pictures of Ken getting cozy with another woman and entering a hotel together. He couldn't deny it. How did you get these? In his panic, Ken crumpled the photos. My dad gave these to me. That old coot did. Seems like my dad had his doubts about you since you hardly came home and kept asking for money. I was surprised, always trusting you. Guess I became numb to your odd behavior over the years. I don't know how long you've been cheating, but it means the time I spent with you was wasted. That hurts. My dad, unskilled with his cell phone camera, had taken several shots of Ken's infidelity. While debating whether or not to tell me, under the guise of evening walks, he had collected all the evidence. And right before he passed, he finally spilled the beans about this and the financial issues. we should get a divorce. But, Kathy! I cut off Ken's words. You think you have a say? He gritted his teeth in frustration. His mother clung to his arm, whispering sharply. This isn't what we discussed. We thought Kathy, being a maid, would just listen to us. I realized, from her words, I was just chosen as a wife because I'd be a good housemaid. That's why their attitudes turned cold after marriage. Upon realizing my dad had more money than expected, they took advantage of him too. A maid should just nod and obey her husband. What's with this rebellious attitude? You used to be so timid. Now, with a bit of age, you think you're smart? This is marital fraud. Ken was deceived. His mother cried on Ken's chest. Even though revealing more would crush his already devastated mother, I couldn't stay silent. You keep calling me a tea-serving maid, but what era are you living in? Maybe decades ago, but now it's the 2020s. If you keep using such outdated terms, you're just broadcasting how out of touch you are. Quite embarrassing. You cheeky woman! His mother still had some bark left in her. For some reason, Ken shouted with tears in his eyes. Yeah, you'd be nothing without me. He trembled slightly, resembling a chihuahua picking a fight. Ken, you know I work too, right? Rents for family apartments were high and there were expenses for Emily's education. Maybe back then, I couldn't live comfortably on my salary alone. But... A tear slid down Ken's cheek. Not paying any mind, I continued. I earn enough for my own living expenses now. Balancing work and raising a child was tough, but I'm glad I continued working. Thank you, Ken, for the time we had. Goodbye. His mother glared at me as if I were a demon. Amy shouted, letting out her true feelings. A wife shouldn't have thoughts, rights, or money. It's perfect if she's just a bit dull. The cries of Ken's mother echoed in the now empty room. Amy collapsed on the spot, while Ken just looked up to the heavens. Though there were some struggles afterwards, the sale of the house and the divorce from Ken eventually went through. When I demanded a division of property, Ken reluctantly confessed. Please, go easy on me. I hardly have any savings. He not only squandered his money but, in fact, his salary was pretty low to begin with. I doubted it because Ken, with his impressive education, worked for a major company, so it didn't make sense. But in reality, even past the age of 50, he didn't hold any significant position and wasn't entrusted with any major tasks, so he didn't have to work overtime. His take-home pay was barely different from the fresh-out-of-college youngsters. Of course, all those times he claimed he was working late or on business trips were lies. He was cheating. No wonder he looked so pitiful when I talked about work and money. I couldn't help but laugh thinking that maybe Ken, in this modern age, was just doing menial tasks like fetching coffee and making copies at his prestigious company. Just 3 months after the divorce, Ken approached me wanting to get back together, which shocked me. Kathy, can we start over? Ken, who was always so proud of working for a big company, apparently had to move into a cheap 2-bedroom apartment with his mother and Amy after the divorce. His mother and Amy, who were hoping to leech off high-earning Ken, were astounded to discover his meager earnings. They had frequent arguments in their thin-walled apartment and eventually, Ken left them behind. Apparently, he even quit his job because he felt unappreciated. After having his pride severely damaged, Ken tried to start a second life with his mistress, but as an unemployed, penniless older guy. He was quickly dumped and found himself returning to me. It's astounding how Ken doesn't understand his own position. There was never a future for Ken and his mistress from the start. Why would I ever give us another shot? I firmly declined. A downcast Ken left quietly, but he soon caused more trouble. I'm broke. Can you help? Or, lend me some money, please? His mother and Amy came begging. It seems Ken, with nowhere else to go, returned to them. And now, he's arrogantly flaunting around, saying I'm an elite, and spending his nights out, burning through cash. Their debts soared quickly, but Ken didn't care. His mother and Amy, who weren't used to work, had to start part-time jobs, but it was like a drop in the bucket. I can't lend money to strangers. I turned them away, of course. If they were a normal family, I might have considered helping them in their time of need. But they were the ones who cast me aside as a stranger. I had played the part of the perfect wife for too long. Now divorced, living a life where I don't have to cater to anyone is liberating. And since I live alone in a small apartment, Emily often visits, so I don't feel lonely. She seems happier now, without her arrogant father and downcast mother around. Mom, you've changed. Really? Maybe your grandpa was watching over me, and that gave me the courage to change. Handing over some freshly made beef and potato stew to Emily, her eyes lit up. Yes! I love your beef and potato stew. Taking a bite, Emily looked blissful. It's wonderful to have someone who truly values you. It brings so much vitality to life. I want to change even more. I want to become strong enough to protect the people I care about, especially Emily. Don't worry, I won't change the taste of the beef and potato stew. I murmured, and Emily tilted her head curiously. I hope these peaceful moments last forever.